She walked into the gym in worn-out shoes. No gear, no ego, just quiet eyes. He laughed, challenged her in front of everyone. But when she stepped onto the mat, nobody expected what came next. And by the end, the entire gym was dead silent. Gym echoed with the sounds of bodies hitting mats, gloves smacking pads, and trainers barking instructions. It was the kind of place where sweat dripped from the walls and pride hung thicker than the air. Sparring hour brought out the regulars, the fighters with something to prove, and others with someone to impress. In the middle of this, the front door creaked open, barely noticed at first, until a few heads turned. She stepped inside quietly. No gym bag, no flashy gear, just a plain hoodie, loose joggers, and shoes that had clearly seen better days. She didn't look like much, certainly, not someone here to fight. No defined muscles, no obvious posture of an athlete, no swagger. She moved slowly, scanning the gym with calm, observant eyes, like she was absorbing everything. One of the younger trainers glanced at her, then turned back to his pad work. Another fighter whispered "newbie" with a smirk. Then came the voice that always had to be heard. A black belt, one of the loudest in the room, and proud of it, looked up from his stretching, caught sight of her, and grinned like a wolf. "Spotting a rabbit? You lost?" he called out. "Loud enough for everyone nearby to hear?" She looked over, didn't answer immediately. He kept going. "Yoga's down the street. Or maybe you're here to book a Zumba class." Few of his friends laughed. She didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped forward, quietly approaching the edge of the mat. "Is this open sparring?" she asked. He raised his eyebrows. "Oh, it is now," he chuckled. "You want to join in?" He gestured at the coach, who was mid-conversation, but now watching with thinly veiled curiosity. "Coach, can we get her some gloves? She's ready to take on the world." Coach didn't laugh. He studied her. Something about her eyes not nervous, not unsure, just patient, like she'd been here before, somewhere, somehow. Still, the coach was responsible. He stepped in. "You've got experience?" He asked her. "A little," she said. The black belt burst out laughing. "A little? Oh, this'll be fun." "Name?" the coach asked. She simply said her first name, calm, soft. He sighed. "All right. No full contact. Light spar only. And I don't want blood on my mats." The black belt was already taping his wrists. "Don't worry, coach. I'll keep it playful, like a warm-up set." She took off her hoodie and shoes without a word, walking barefoot toward the mat with a stillness that stood out in the high-energy room. She wore a simple t-shirt, no belt, no emblem, nothing to suggest where she came from or what she knew. Across the mat, the black belt adjusted his stance. He winked at his buddies. "You ready, ma'am?" he said in a mockingly polite tone, bowing dramatically. She bowed back, minimal and respectful. The gym started paying attention. Even the ones who hadn't noticed her entrance were now watching. It wasn't every day someone walked in off the street and agreed to spar with a decorated black belt, especially someone who didn't look like she'd ever thrown a punch in her life. "You nervous?" he asked, bouncing lightly on his feet. She didn't answer. Coach stood at the side. "Touch gloves," he said. They met in the center. She raised her hand, met his glove gently, then stepped back into her stance. No flash, no theatrics, just stillness. The moment hung. Then the black belt charged forward, grinning. He was fast. He was aggressive. Came in low, feinting a left jab before swinging a hook. It was a move he'd used 100 times on new students. He expected her to flinch or recoil. She didn't. She tilted her head slightly. The hook passed in front of her nose like a breeze. Her foot pivoted just enough to slide off center. The crowd leaned in. He grunted, surprised, came again. This time with a spinning back kick, his signature move. She stepped in, inside the radius, nullifying the power, and with a soft push against his shoulder, disrupted his entire balance. He stumbled, not hard, but enough that his pride took a hit. Someone whispered, "Did she just do that on purpose?" He recovered quickly, face tightening. No more games, but she still wasn't moving much. Just shifting her weight, tracking. Him, with calm eyes, he threw a combo now. Left jab, right jab, low kick. She ducked, deflected, turned with it. His glove grazed her shoulder. That's it. Not a single clean hit. She still hadn't thrown a punch. Gasps echoed from the sidelines. He came in again, time with real heat body. Low, hands high, explosive movement. She let him get close, then spun behind him so fast it looked like a glitch in a video game. One moment she was in front of him, the next she was behind him, touching his back with a finger. It wasn't about power. It was precision, control. The black belt froze.
Ice.
His eyes darted to the coach.
House.
The coach didn't say a word. Now she moved. Forward. Slowly. For the first time, she threw a soft palm, strike not to hurt, but to check his defense. He blocked. Barely. Then she added a low sweep. He leaped back. Panic flashed across his face. The laughter in the room had vanished. Everyone was quiet. Even the playlist in the background seemed like it had dropped in volume. He reset his stance, breathing harder. She tilted her head just a little, studying him, measuring. Then she gave him an opening. He lunged in, thinking it was a mistake. It wasn't. She intercepted. Used his weight, redirected, and in one fluid motion, he was on the ground, flat, controlled, not hurt, just outmaneuvered. She stepped back, calm, and bowed. The coach stepped forward, speechless. That's enough. The black belt sat up, blinking like he'd just woken up from a dream. Nobody spoke, no claps, no cheers, just stunned silence. She picked up her hoodie, slipped on her shoes, and walked toward the exit like nothing had happened. No victory lap. No gloating, just gone. Behind her, the gym was frozen. Left trying to understand what they'd just seen. She stepped onto the center of the mat with bare feet, each step silent, deliberate. Her posture was neutral, no raised fists, no bouncing knees. Just stillness. The crowd that had gathered near the mat watched with smirks and crossed arms. Their phones already out to record what they assumed would be a quick and embarrassing defeat. Someone whispered, "Why isn't she wearing gloves?" Another replied with a chuckle, "Won't matter in 60 seconds. Across from her, the black belt performed an exaggerated stretch. Arms behind his head, twisting his torso like he was on stage. He glanced toward the crowd, winked, and began to jog in place, warming up theatrically. His teammates clapped rhythmically, building the energy. One of them shouted, "She's about to learn today." Another laughed, hoped she signed a waiver. Didn't react. No emotion crossed her face. She simply waited, her eyes tracking him not aggressively, but with quiet focus. The way a chess player studies the board before making the first move. She bowed respectfully, and he bowed in return. Only his version was dramatic and sarcastic. The coach stepped in between them. "You know the rules. Light contact. Keep it clean." The black belt nodded, eyes still locked on her, a grin teasing. The corner of his mouth, raised his hands, rolled his shoulders, then stepped into his fighting stance. She didn't mirror it. She stood with one foot slightly behind the other, her hands open, palms down, her breathing almost meditative. The coach clapped once. "Begin." He didn't hesitate. He shot forward with a textbook 1-2 jab combo, fast and practiced, the kind that knocked out first-timers regularly. She didn't flinch. Her upper body tilted just enough for the punches to pass inches from her face. It wasn't a dodge, it was a whisper of movement. Too efficient to be flashy. The black belt snorted and followed with a low roundhouse kick. She stepped over it with the grace of someone avoiding a puddle. The crowd laughed nervously. He pivoted, spun, and came in with a spinning hook kick that caught wind. She leaned back, letting it pass harmlessly in front of her eyes. That's when the murmurs started. "Did you see that?" She moved before he even finished. "What the hell?" The black belt circled her, now more serious. His smile had thinned. He bounced lightly, then lunged again, this time with a fake left and a hard right jab. She shifted her shoulder, letting the punch slide past her collarbone. He pressed harder. A knee. A back fist. She pivoted, stepped off and galed, redirected. His strikes met nothing but air. He was striking at full speed now, and she was barely moving. She didn't punch. She didn't kick. She let him come, and each time, she turned him, directed him. A deflection here, a sidestep there. Clean, controlled, surgical. He growled low in his throat and pushed forward with a clinch attempt, reaching for her collar. She spun beneath his arms, caught his wrist, and with a movement so fluid it looked accidental. She turned him in a half circle and placed him back where he'd started off balance. Blinking, the laughter stopped. The gym wasn't cheering anymore. No one was shouting. The only sound now was the shuffling of feet on the mat and the quiet thud of failed strikes. The black belt reset, breathing heavier. Sweat had begun to glisten on his forehead. His jaw was tight. He shook out his arms and tried again, charging with rapid-fire combos low-high. A fake teep kick, followed by a side kick. She caught the side kick with one hand and redirected it down with the elegance of pouring water. As he stumbled forward, she moved past him, lightly tapped his shoulder as she passed, almost playful. He spun around, frustrated, panting. He feinted again, throwing a jab. And finally she moved forward, just an inch, and tapped the inside of his forearm with her fingers. His entire arm dropped, not from pain, from precision. Nerve strike? She didn't follow up. He just stepped back. Now the room was tense. A trainer whispered, "That was a pressure point." "Who the hell is she?" Phones lowered. People leaned in, forgetting to record. The black belt was red in the face. His pride had taken more hits than his body. He charged in again, going for a takedown. She accepted the momentum, shifted her hips, and let him fly past. As he stumbled forward, she used a single leg sweep to bring him to the mat. Gently. Controlled. He wasn't hurt. Just grounded. He slammed the mat in frustration and rolled back up. She waited. He rushed again. This time, more chaotic, he threw a wild overhand. She ducked beneath, spun behind, and placed a hand softly on his back before stepping away. He turned in a frenzy, swinging. She was already gone. Another pass, another failed combo. Was breathing hard now, struggling to focus. She hadn't even thrown a real strike yet. Then came her first attack. It wasn't loud or flashy. A palm strike perfectly timed caught his chest mid-charge. It didn't knock him down. It didn't have to. It stopped him cold, like running into an invisible wall. He stumbled back, confused. She followed up with a soft flick to his shoulder joint, spinning him. Before he could regain balance, she swept. His legs again, this time bringing him down with a gentle judo throw that ended in a pin position. She let go immediately and stood. He lay there, breathing heavily, eyes wide, chest rising and falling like a bellows. She extended a hand. He took it. When he stood, the crowd saw it clearly. His expression had changed. Not just winded, humbled. She bowed again, respectful as ever. He returned the bow, this time with no sarcasm. The coach finally spoke. "That's enough." The silence in the room remained. No one clapped, no one jeered. It was the silence of realization that something remarkable had just happened. Most of them had missed it in real time. He stepped back, wiping sweat from his face, staring at her like trying to solve a riddle he didn't have the pieces for. She didn't say a word, just nodded once at the coach and stepped off the mat, picking up her hoodie. Behind her, the black belt sat on the edge of the mat, still catching his breath. He wasn't angry, wasn't even embarrassed, just awed. Because for the first time in that gym's memory, it wasn't a match, it wasn't a contest, it was a lesson. And they all knew exactly who the teacher was. The moment had built up like a thundercloud. The black belt, once full of cocky swagger and easy laughter, now stood across from her, breathing hard, feet unsteady, searching for something he couldn't name. She hadn't struck him with power. She hadn't yelled or bragged or celebrated any advantage. She had simply dismantled him, layer by layer. Each move had peeled away a piece of his pride, and yet there was no shame in the way she did it, no malice. Just precision, understanding, control. He squared up one more time. One last effort. Maybe he thought he could salvage something, a draw, a point, a lucky hit. He took a short breath, then lunged forward with his last burst of energy. This time, he committed everything. A full-body charge, a flurry of strikes, a final gamble. She moved with a calm that bordered on the surreal, stepping into his space rather than away from it. Her hand met his wrist, mid-strike not, to block but to guide. A pivot of her hip, a twist of her frame, and she redirected. His momentum so smoothly it looked choreographed. He flew past her, chest first. Before he could stumble, her foot caught behind his ankle. Her elbow nudged his shoulder blade, and he dropped to the mat, not slammed, not thrown, but placed down like someone lowering a fragile package. He landed flat, arms out, eyes wide. To the ceiling, she took a single step back, then bowed, and that was it. No celebration, no pose. She simply returned to stillness, as if nothing extraordinary had just happened. But it had. The black belt lay there for a long second, catching his breath, blinking, trying to replay what had gone wrong, only to realize nothing had gone wrong. He'd done everything he knew. She had just known more. The room was silent. Not out of awkwardness, but reverence. No one knew how to respond. No claps, no cheers, just stunned quiet. A few mouths hung open. One guy holding his phone had stopped recording altogether, as if too distracted to remember he was filming. Even the coach, a man who had trained champions and seen hundreds of fights, stood motionless with his arms crossed, watching her like she wasn't real. She turned and began walking toward the bench where her hoodie and shoes rested. The coach finally moved, stepping toward her. "Where did you train?" he asked, not confrontational, not skeptical, just genuinely curious. She looked at him, offered a small, patient smile, and said, "I practice a little." It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't false humility. It was just the truth in the most mysterious, disarming form. The black belt had risen to his knees, then his feet. His expression was unreadable, part confusion, part awe, and surprisingly no bitterness. He stepped forward, bowed low, deeply this time, not out of habit but from something more sincere. She returned the gesture with the same quiet grace. There was no handshake, no words. Just two fighters, acknowledging what had passed between them. One who had underestimated, one who had nothing to prove. Then she moved to the edge of the mat, sat, and began to slip her shoes back on. A few gym members approached slowly, as if walking up to a wild animal that might vanish if startled. Someone asked her what style that was. Someone else asked if she competed. She didn't answer either, just nodded politely, gave a soft take. Karen stood to leave as she reached the door. One of the younger trainees, barely 18, eyes wide as planets, called out, "Will you be back?" She paused, just for a second, then gave the slightest shrug. "Maybe," she said, and then she was gone. The door closed behind her with a soft click, but the room remained frozen. The coach exhaled deeply, finally moving toward the black belt. He didn't offer comfort. He just placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "You did well." The black belt didn't respond. Yeah, he didn't need to. He had just been given a lesson. No amount of belts could buy. Within minutes, everyone who had recorded the match was replaying it on their phones. Over and over, slow motion, zooming in, looking for clues. Trying to understand how someone who looked so ordinary had moved like a master. They noticed tiny details now: her timing, her footwork, the way she read his weight shift before he moved, the way she manipulated balance with nothing but angles. It's like she knew what he was going to do before he did. One guy whispered, "Was that Aikido?" someone asked. "Or maybe Sistama?" No, that throw looked like judo. The theories began piling up. I bet she's ex-military. Maybe she was a national champion, retired or something. Dude, what if she's like a monk? Even the coach pulled one of the videos onto the big screen in the office. He watched it in silence. Watched the way she stepped behind the black belt and tapped him. Watched the exact angle of her wrist when she took his balance. Watched the way she ended the match without ever hurting him. He leaned back, arms folded. That wasn't luck, he muttered to himself. That was legacy. Within hours, the clip hit the local martial arts forums. Threads popped up titled, "Unknown Woman Schools Black Belt in Live Sparring, and Mystery Fighter Humbles Dojo Ego with Flawless Control." The comments exploded. Experts weighed in. People who had never met her swore they'd seen her at a competition years ago. Others argued she had to be special forces. A few claimed she was just a fluke-a-lucky street fighter who got it right once. But everyone knew better. Back at the gym, her name was already being spoken differently. Not as a joke, not as a question, but as a standard. They didn't speak of her with gossip. They spoke of her with respect. And long after the crowd had left, long after the mats had been wiped and the lights turned off, one of the young students stood alone in the hallway. Watching the clip again, he hit pause on the exact frame where she bowed and whispered under his breath, "Who was she?" But no one had the answer, and maybe that was the point. The video went up 2 days later, but someone had trimmed it down too. Just the essential moments: the black belt's confident entrance, the woman's calm posture, the missed strikes, the clean throw, the bow at the end. It was uploaded under the simple title, "Unknown Woman Humbles Black Belt in Silent Sparring Match." It didn't take long. Within hours, the views climbed into the thousands.
Ow.
By the next morning, tens of thousands. Comments poured in from all over the world. Who is she? That wasn't a fight. That was an education. She didn't hit him. She undid him. The martial arts community lit up. Experts paused the video frame by frame, pointing out every pivot, each step, every angle she used. Some claimed it was high-level judo. Others argued it was aikido, and a few swore they saw traces of ancient Chinese systems. More than one commenter said it reminded them of internal martial arts Tai Chi used, not as meditation, but as a devastating, real-world technique. But nobody knew her name. Forums spun theories like wildfire. Ex-CIA? Black Ops? Olympic Reserve? One commenter said she resembled a woman he'd seen training in Thailand 10 years ago. Another insisted she had to be part of some hidden dojo that didn't believe in fame or belts. A few thought the whole thing was staged until multiple phone angles from the gym confirmed it. No choreography, all set up. Just raw, real-time humbling. Back in the gym, everything felt different. The mats were the same. The sounds of pads and gloves still echoed, but the energy had shifted. People trained quieter now, more focused. Even the joking had dialed down. There was a sense of reverence in the air. Like the space had been blessed or warned. The coach called for a team meeting the following week. Everyone gathered, expecting some talk about scheduling or competition prep. Instead, he walked to the front of the room, silent for a long moment, holding nothing but a remote. Behind him, the screen lit up with the paused video, her final bow. He turned to face them. "You all saw what happened," he said simply. "Some of you were there. Others have watched this 100 times. But I want to make sure we all understand it." Clicked play. The video ran quietly, the sound off. Just the image of her flowing around the black belt's attacks, never panicking, never forcing. At the moment, she tapped his shoulder and stepped. Behind him, someone in the room exhaled softly. The coach clicked pause again. "Strength," he said, "isn't always loud. Skill doesn't have to prove itself. An ego will always be the first thing broken on the mat." No one spoke. He turned to the wall, walked to a small open space near the entrance, and stuck up a simple sign. Black letters, white background. It read, "Train like she's watching," and just like that, it became the gym's new motto. The black belt changed too. No one had mocked him after that match because no one could. He had stepped up, taken the challenge, and bowed when it was done. Now he trained harder. Not louder, not more aggressively, but with precision. With focus. He stayed late to clean mats. He sparred less to win and more to learn. And when people asked him about that day, he didn't dodge the question. He smiled, nodded, and said, "She reminded me why I started." More people joined the gym after the video spread, not because they wanted to fight Hirsch. She was gone. But because they wanted to train somewhere that had seen that level of mastery up close. It was like the dojo had been touched by something bigger than itself. Everyone trained with sharper discipline now, with quiet respect. And yet no one saw her again. Weeks passed, then months. Some waited, half expecting she might return one day, slip quietly through the door again, and offer another lesson. But she never did. Theories only grew. One story claimed she had trained in Japan for years in a monastery that didn't allow cameras. Another said she'd once been a world champion who walked away from it all. Some claimed she was a therapist who used martial arts for healing. A few believed she had no formal training at all, that she was simply gifted beyond explanation. But none of that could be confirmed. No social media, no photos. No name on any tournament registry, nothing. One student claimed he saw her downtown weeks later, helping an elderly man load groceries into a car. He didn't approach, just watched, unsure if it was really her. Another swore she saw her volunteering. At a shelter, quiet, unnoticed, blending into the background like always. But in the end, it didn't matter who she was. What mattered was what she left behind. A story, a standard. A silent reminder that appearances lie, humility wins, and real mastery needs no spotlight. Her absence only made her presence more powerful. People who hadn't even been there told the story as if they had, describing the way she moved, the moment she bowed, the way the gym fell silent. She had come in with no name, no belt, no status, and yet she had become legend. Some said she came to teach someone a lesson. Others believed she just wanted to prove that true power can be quiet. A few even joked she was a spirit sent to humble the overconfident. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain: the gym would never forget her, and long after the mats had been replaced, after the black belt had moved on and new students had arrived, her name, or the mystery of it, was still spoken in whispers. Always with respect, she was the reminder that in a world full of noise, silence still wins. For more stories like this, subscribe to Simply Stories.